Hi, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Foothill Paint Fabrication. Well, we're back on Project Ruby today, and we are going to finally get that filler panel welded in today, I hope. So there's been a lot of work on camera and off camera to get where we're at today, and actually I started on this yesterday. I was going to start shooting video, and I thought, well, I'll just throw the trunk lid on and we'll start shooting, start rolling, right? Well, that was yesterday. I've been doing a lot of work off camera, so let's jump in here, see what we've got done so far and what we still need to do. Okay, so this is where we're at right now. I've got the trunk lid on and it's leveled, and that took quite a while yesterday to get this to sit exactly where I wanted it on both sides, and then have all, the gaps line up really well. So that took a while in itself. I had to keep shimming the hinges, and we'll show you that in a minute. But I finally got where I wanted it. Then we could start doing the final fit up on the filler panel. And I don't know if you guys can tell, but the height is looking really good. If I get down in there. But it's looking really good overall. Not perfect. This filler panel is not the exact shape of this trunk. They don't run perfectly parallel, and there's no way I can fix that by moving this around or moving the trunk lid around. We will have to do some kind of filling along here to make it look just perfect. So, and that's the way it is, you got to work with what you got. But it's looking really well all over. I'm really happy with it. So let me put the camera down, and we'll pop this trunk open and we'll take a look what I had to do to get where we're at right now. Okay, to get the deck lid up where I wanted it so it looked really nice along the edge of the quarter panels, I had to shim it. So I've got a shim here and a shim here, and that kind of raised it up nice and even, and that worked out really well. But on this side, to get this, and this is the way these hinges are designed, the pivot point's way up high, and the way this is shaped, so I've got no shim there and one shim here, and what it does, it kind of kicks that up a little bit and got the height I wanted. I actually made shims. I was messing around with this so much just to try to get it to sit at the perfect height right through here. So I finally did, and it's sitting right where I need to, and the reason I need to do that is because I have to use that to match the filler panel too. Now, these shims may not even stay in here when Ruby's done because there's no weather strip in right now. So once the weather strip's in, it actually pushes up on the deck lid, and you actually need the hinges to pull down. Right now, no weather strip, so it's just sitting where it sits. And so it's neither here nor there. Right now, we are just trying to fit up that panel, and I need that trunk lid to sit exactly where I want it when Ruby's all done. So that's what I had to do. But it took quite a bit of fiddling to get where we're at. So I've got some screws in right along here for the filler panel, because obviously I can't raise and lower the trunk lid with the clamps along here. So I've got sheet metal screws, just 3 of them, one in the center, one on each end, or one partially over, and the screws are going up from underneath, and I kind of wobbled out the hole underneath on that gray strip there. That way I had a little bit of adjustability, and then just let the sheet metal part dig in right there. So that's pretty well set, and the panel is clamped in, not perfectly clamped in. We are not ready to weld by any means. You can see a clamp dangling right down right there. So I'm going to put the camera back a little bit. We're going to go ahead and pull the panel off, and then we'll talk a little bit about what we need to do so we can get ready to weld. Okay, let's see if we can finagle this thing out here. A little difficult with the trunk lid in the way. All right, have that in and out a few times. Okay, so you guys can see I've got something laying in here, and this is actually sound deadening material that was left over from the Malibu SS project. And if you recall, there was a piece of some sort of fibrous material, I'll see if I can find a video of it, that we took out that was actually sandwiched between the filler panel and the filler panel brace. So I wanted to replicate that. Now I did hang on to that stuff for a little bit, but it was just falling apart. It was really old and decrepit, so I just chucked it. And I wanted to do something because the new filler panel is kind of floppy, and it's only 20 gauge, and this is a big span with no bracing on it. So that other old piece the filler panel actually was kind of touching it and the filler panel brace in a few spots. So the idea was I had this, I looked around, I searched for something to replicate what was in here, and I really think this is going to be a good solution. So this will actually is designed for sound deadening, and it will hold up. I had a few other ideas, but most of those are like foam packing materials, and they're designed to degrade over time, so when they're in the landfill they fall apart. This stuff isn't designed for that. This is designed for heat and be inside a car. So that's why I chose it. It's really thin, and I've already test fitted the panel on here several times with it on here. So we're gonna go ahead and adhere this to the underside of the filler panel, take some of that floppiness out and tighten it up a little bit, and hopefully we won't have any rattles and it'll be nice and solid back here. Now the name of this stuff is Siles. I think we got it off Amazon, and it worked pretty good on the Malibu. And it's thin enough to mold, and the adhesive is super strong, so as long as the surface is clean you're putting it to, it should stick really good. Just like that. I'm going to squish it down really good because this will be the last time I have a chance to do it, but that should solidify this, make this a lot more solid. It has already, so it'll improve this little thin 20 gauge quite a bit. All right, I'm gonna get this stuck down, and we're gonna move back over to Ruby, and we're gonna start figuring out where all of our spot welds are gonna be and where tack welds are gonna be. Okay, before we can start fitting that panel back on, figure out where we're gonna weld it, I have to get this part back on. Now, I had it setting out, I tripped over it a couple times, and Mark, you gotta set this where you're not gonna forget before you put that filler panel on. So this piece was right here underneath. Now, this is off the donor car. I had to put a little patch on it to fix it up because it was a little janky too. Now, the water ran down from the window and it hit this part and it pooled right here and rusted a hole right here. That's the one I did off camera. So what it does, it fits right up underneath here. Get my arm out of the way, and it reinforces this for some reason. I'm not entirely sure. I've stared at it trying to figure out what GM did this for, but they must have had a good reason, so we're going to put it back on. And it needs a spot weld right here, and then the filler panel will go right over the top near the same spot welds, and it kind of all spot weld together. So I do want to get that on first and get it out of the way before I screw up and leave it off. So to glue it on, I have the stuff that we used for the flutter kit on that 50 Chevy truck. It's been sitting in the shelf. I used about half the tube. It's already starting to go bad because I had to dig a big booger out of the end, even though I sealed it up real tight. You know how it is. Once you open these things up, the shelf life isn't that long. So I'm going to go ahead and use this stuff. It'll adhere to both pieces of sheet metal together, no problem. I don't have any qualms about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a big blob on here and some in the middle. They really blobbed it up pretty good. And then we're going to clamp it and get it spot welded. All right, let's see here. They had a pretty good bead around the perimeter, if I remember correctly. Now I did drill 2 holes in this to let water out just in case. But we're not going to have any water in Ruby. Right? Right. This fits in there pretty good, and I have a feeling I should go put some gloves on before I put this up in there. Because I think I'm getting carried away with this juice here. Okay. Let's see. I think I put enough on there. Let's get a clamp on here and then get spot welder going. Okay, I got it up in there. I guess still got it on my hands. I got a little block holding it up too and the clamp, so I can feel the edge of it. Let's just go ahead and get it spot welded. All right, takes care of that piece. Let's get the panel back on here. Okay, we got the panel back on, and now we're going to identify where I can reach with the spot welder and then where I'm going to need to plug weld. So if you see, there's little pieces of blue tape, and every spot is where I can reach with that spot welder and come in and just spot weld the two together. Now where the yellow tape is where I have to plug weld because I just can't reach it. Ideal, I'd love to spot weld the whole thing, but it's just not possible. The one thing I need to decide is, am I going to drill a hole in the brace and weld up onto the filler panel, or frankly, I don't know if I can get my head up in there and see what I'm doing, or we need to drill a hole in the panel itself and plug weld to the brace, which is probably the way we're going to go. And the reason I'm identifying all these locations is, now we sprayed this with epoxy. I want to take the roll-off and just grind a little circle wherever we're going to spot weld or weld. You know, ideally it'd be great if we didn't have to. Where we're spot welding, we're going to need bare steel, and where we MIG weld, it doesn't have to be as clean, but I want it clean. And I could, you know, spray it with some weld through primer, but I'm going to grind such a small area. The weld through primer just burns away anyways, and it just causes kind of a funky weld. So I'm just going to go ahead and grind these clean, and it'll be way better than it was. It was just pure bare steel the whole run, so we're going to be way better off. Now on the edges down here where it meets the sail panel along here, I can almost reach the whole thing with the spot welder from underneath. So we're going to have to kind of just grind a strip on both of them, and I know we sprayed epoxy on there, and that was to get down as far as we could down here. And when we're done, we're probably going to pour some down inside there just to seal that up real good. But you know, we have to do the best we can, and weld through primer is really, like I said, it's not going to help me a lot right there. Now over here, I'm pretty sure I can spot weld this whole run. Obviously the trunk lid's going to be out of the way when we get there, and then I can spot weld over here too. But I need to clamp these up and get this TIG welded first, because I don't want the spot weld to hold it out of position. I want it to be all TIG welded together, then clamp it and spot weld it down to the quarter panel. But that's kind of where we're at right now. I've got a lot of work to do off camera. I'm going to locate all, you know, evenly spaced spot welds along here. Then we'll grind the underside of the filler panel. Then we'll grind a little clean spot on this whole area. And we'll do that same thing all the way around until I'm sure I got a good, nice weldable surface. And then we're ready, hopefully, to put that filler panel on for the very last time, get it clamped in, screwed in, everything. We can pull the trunk lid off and start thinking about getting some welding done. Okay, we got all the spots cleaned up where a spot weld will be, both sides. Got them there too. And then drilled all the plug weld holes. I'm going to go ahead and do it from the top. I can push down and do a way better job than trying to look over my head at an angle and try to get that done. So it's just better, and then we'll just grind them smooth later. But we got all those ready, got all the spot weld areas ready as well. And then got the strips along the side. Kind of hate to, you know, wire wheel that off, but you know, a good strong spot weld is way more important at this point. We'll seal that up later. So I got all this ready. Got down in there, so I think it's time to finally put this thing on and not ever take it off again. In my lifetime anyways. Okay, I hope I'm not forgetting something, because this is the last time it goes on. All right, drops right in, but it's going to take a little bit of pushing and pulling to get it in the exact right spot. Let's move over to the other side and start getting some clamps on it. Okay, this is the driver's side, and if you guys recall on the final fit up, this was the good side, the easy side, but it's been giving me some fits, keeping it far enough to the rear so the body line right along here stays really nice. I can slide it, but when I start doing other clamps on it, it tries to move back. So I got to really just bear down on it, pull it to the rear as hard as I can, get a clamp on there really tight. I'll probably get another one on, and then I got to go and put these smaller clamps along the pinch weld to hold that in place so I can get this clamp out of the way, because we have to raise and lower the trunk lid to check the gaps on throughout here and the height as well. So I'm going to go ahead and get some clamps up underneath. We're going to move to the other side, and then we're going to start looking, hopefully be able to lower the trunk lid and kind of eyeball it and see how it looks. And if it looks pretty good, then we can put the screws in down along there and then start adding some more clamps and hopefully get the trunk lid off and start doing some welding and spot welding. Okay, we got the clamps out of the way and the clamps underneath. We're good and tight, so let's see how we're looking here. Now, my trouble area was this kept trying to walk back and making this body line gap too wide. The problem with this, like I mentioned earlier, this filler panel, that curved shape does not match this curved shape exactly. So it pulls in a little bit on the corners, which we're going to have to fill that and figure it out later. But I cut this little piece of stir stick into a wedge, and it just barely fits right there. And you can see it falls all the way in. This is full width, and it still falls all the way in. So we're going to kind of slide it along there and see where it touches. So it touches right about there, and if I go the thick part, we slide in and it starts touching right about there. So it's not horrible, but it's not good enough for me. We're going to go ahead and fix this. Now, if I pull this, somehow force this farther to the rear, then my gap in the middle is going to become tiny, and there's nothing I can do about it. So I can fill this on each side for a couple inches and make that work. The other thing I want to check is the height. I want to make sure the deck lid, because I spent all that time getting it adjusted just right out here, so I want to make sure that matches right here. And getting down low, I can see that it's sitting just at the right height. Now, when I get over here, it's not. This panel is actually too high, but we don't have those screws holding it down yet, and it'll be eventually spot welded. So I'm going to go check the other side, make sure we're good in this area, and if we are, then I can prop the deck lid up, put the screws in, then check again, and then we can start adding clamps everywhere. Okay, I had to readjust this one, but it's sitting really good as far as height. This side is looking good. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but if you look right here, I'll get the camera low enough, you can see that that trunk lid, or the filler panel, is sitting higher than the trunk lid. So let's go ahead and get the screws in, and then we'll double check some stuff, and then start grabbing every clamp I can get on here. Okay, we got the screws in, holding that down to that brace, and now the panel is lower than the trunk lid. So we have to fix that. It can't sit lower, it has to be up higher. So what we're going to do is bend the whole filler panel and the brace it's screwed to. We're going to jack that up until they both match exactly. Now, I could have put my hand on there a bunch of times when I was working on it, in and out of the stripping tank. Anything could have pushed that down, or maybe this filler panel just isn't as tall as the factory one. So we're going to fix that by just pushing up, gently until these both match again. And it's actually being down like that is actually causing these to rise up a little bit. So once we get that center up, then these sides should go back down. So let's see if we can get that done. Okay, so here's the setup. I got a 2x4 laying in the floor of the trunk. I've got another board on it and just something to pry with, another little 2x4. And I'm just going to go slow with this, and I'm going to pry up, give it a couple of really good bumps, and I may move over 8 or 10 inches on each side and do the same thing, and then just lower the trunk and just keep doing that until this is the proper height. So let me go ahead and do that. It's going to be back and forth quite a bit. And it looks like the battery on the camera is just about to die, so we may have to take this up tomorrow. Look at that. First try. How do you like that, guys? Beauty. I love it. Well, we don't have to take this up tomorrow. All right, it's getting dark and I'm getting hungry, so I'll see you guys in the morning. Good morning. All right, so I checked my work from yesterday, and we are flush all along here to right about there, and the filler panel is just slightly higher than the trunk lid, just a tiny bit. So what I think I'll do is I'm going to put the camera down, and before I weld it up, I'm going to go ahead and prop something up underneath here, and then the sheet metal goes right down inside here. I'm going to lay something down in this crease, something long, piece of steel, and then smack it with a hammer and try to get that to pull down just a little bit. So I'm going to do that off camera. It's going to be kind of hard for me to get in there, get the camera in there and everything else, plus having the trunk lid in the way. And I'm going to see if I can't fine tune that a little bit before we start welding. Okay guys, I decided to go ahead and film this real quick. I could get in here. So I just got a screw jack right there holding this up, and it's just putting a little bit of pressure so I don't force that down. And then I've got a block here with a little bit of an angle cut on it, and I'm just going to kind of lay this right down in that crease right there. We're going to give it a couple good smacks here. And then I'm gonna just lower the trunk lid. I'm gonna release that, lower the trunk lid, do that about probably 5 times until I get that the height I want. Okay guys, I lied to you. It took like 8 or 9 times before I got this where I'm at least somewhat happy. It's really flush all the way across here, but you know, you start whacking over here and then that side moves, and so you got to keep relining everything, but I'm really happy with the way it's looking. Really flush everywhere except this little spot right here, and you can tell when I sanded this filler panel, those shiners showed up, so it is high right there. So I think what we're going to do is after it's all welded in and we're in the blocking stage later, and the deck lid's back on, I'll go ahead and massage that down just a little bit, take that high spot out, and then we can get it all perfect. But that's about as best I can get it for right now. And you start whacking over here, and then that side moves, and this side moves, and you got to realign everything, so it takes quite a bit of time. And this is a one-shot deal. I don't want to cut it off and try again, so I'm going to take my time, and that's what I'll do right now off camera. I'm going to go ahead and triple check everything. Then we're going to go ahead and get the deck lid off and then get the TIG welder out. And I think I want to TIG weld these 2 sides first, and then we can start thinking about getting spot welder in there. Okay, I decided to go ahead and spot weld this little wing out in here. So when I put heat to it right here, nothing moves on it. Everything's set exactly where I want it, so I want to get this thing locked down so it doesn't move this way for sure. I think 2 will probably do it. And then once we get this welded up, I can hit it a few more times. I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then we're going to get these cleaned up and get the TIG welder out. Okay, let's see if we can get this welded here. The gap's a little big. Didn't go too bad. Okay, it's looking pretty good. I have a little of a big hole there I had to fill, but I'm getting better. It's looking all right. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other side, and then I think what we're going to do is get that spot welder and see what we can do along here. I kind of want to lock down this area before we start working up towards the where the glass goes. This is more critical, the body lines here and everything else. The rest of it is not that critical. So let me get the other side, and then we'll get the spot welder out and see what we can do along this strip. We may need to machine our little spot welder tip to fit down inside there more. Okay, I got both sides welded. Came out pretty good. Don't look down in there. That was tough, man. I had a long stick out on the tungsten, and it was really hard to get down in there with these things sticking up in my way. I got it welded, but it ain't pretty, that's for sure. Well, none of my welds are super pretty, but we are ready to start spot welding. Now, I went ahead and had to machine, turn that down a little bit so it'll fit because of this overhang right here. So it's probably going to get hotter than it should, so I'll have to wait in between each spot weld, but that's our only solution. So I just put it in the drill on the grinder and ground that down a little bit. So let's get this spot welded. This will be the easiest part of the whole deal right here, and then we can move forward to start spot welding along this pinch weld. Then I think we're going to go ahead and try to get those spot welds and those plug welds done. Okay, if I didn't have the spot welder, I would definitely plug weld these, and I would do it from underneath. That way I don't have to worry about grinding down inside here. You just have to lay on your back, drill probably a 3/16 minimum hole in the brace here, and then put a clamp on each side, and then just weld up overhead. So it's not the end of the world. Then it's super easy to grind this, and you'll just have a little weld blemish right there, nothing to worry about. You are going to have to rig up some clamps to clamp carefully because this does bounce a little bit in between all these screws. But for me, since I have the pinch welder, it's going to clamp it and weld it at the same time, so I really don't have to worry about it. All right, I'm just gonna go bust through this real quick. I'm gonna start in the middle and just work back and forth and just evenly go all the way out. I don't wanna start and just work that way and go this way. I wanna hit it in the middle and then just back and forth. All right, just like that. Super easy. This thing is not that expensive compared to the amount of work it saved me. So we got all those done right now, and no worries on that. I'm gonna go ahead and crawl underneath here. Now I have to hold this thing up. It weighs a ton, and go along that pinch weld. I can't show you any of that. I can't get the camera up in there. I'm gonna be straining to get this done. So I'm gonna go ahead and bust that out. And then we'll move forward and start trying to worry about getting some spot welds and some plug welds up on the front. And we are almost done. Okay, that was not fun. That thing is heavy and it's hard to fit in there. The other side I have to do 2 plug welds because I simply can't reach all the way over to this spot over here. But no big deal. I can do those no problem. So if you don't have a spot welder, you would drill the panel, the filler panel. It's easier to reach it from this side, so you would drill, like 3/16 holes or maybe 1/4-inch holes, and then you could weld right to the sail panel, and then you could fit down through there. So you may need to do a little bit on this side and then on the fender side if you can't, because you can't fit through here. But you'd have to figure that out. But it's totally doable with a MIG welder. Okay, we're getting into the home stretch on this thing. So I'm going to go ahead and do the plug welds on top first, and then we'll do the spot welds. So you can see right here I've got a hole drilled in the filler panel, and I've got 3 holes on each side, and I've got clamps really close to them. So I'm using the hole over here to reach it with this one. I've got a long reach clamp. If you don't have one, you're gonna have to get one so you can clamp that 2 pieces of sheet metal together. If you can't make that work, then you can always drill a hole right next to it and put a sheet metal screw and then pull those together. Then do your plug weld, then pull the screw out, then weld the screw hole shut, and that'll work too. Done that back in the day. That's all we used was sheet metal screws. There were no Glecos, there were no nothing. It was just sheet metal screws for everything, and it works fine. So don't worry about it. If you can't get a clamp on something, drill a small hole, put a sheet metal screw in there, make sure they pull tight together, and you're good to go. All right, I'm gonna set the camera back and get these plug welds done real quick. Then we'll see if we can get the spot welder in here and then take a final look at it. Do here. Okay, that's what you're looking for when you're done. You want to hit that right in the center of your hole and then go out to the edge and weld all the way around the edge. So that's stronger than it ever needs to be, way stronger than the sheet metal. All right, let's get this thing spot welded here, huh? All right. 2 more down there and we are done. Okay guys, all done. All done spot welding, all done TIG welding, all done plug welding. So everything's looking really good. No big drama or anything. Everything came out really nice. Did just like I had hoped. I even started doing a little grinding over here. I still got a lot down inside there. I need to get this video edited and posted for tomorrow, so I'm running a little late this week. But it's all looking really good, and I'm thrilled to get this filler panel finally in. And this is the best I can make it fit, so we're gonna have to work it from here. Okay guys, that pretty much wraps up this video on getting the filler panel finally welded in on Ruby. We did a lot of pre-fit work and everything else, and it really paid off, but I still had some tweaking to do and struggles to hold it in place while I got those first tacks in and get those areas TIG welded, but it really paid off. So this thing is nice and solid now, and that piece of sound deadening that I stuck up underneath the filler panel really helped quite a bit, so that was a good choice on my part. Now, there is some more work to be done to it. I got a lot of grinding to do. We have some plug welds to, grind off and stuff like that. But all in all, it's in there. It's right the best I can make it. And later on, we're gonna have to do some filling and some sanding around it to make it just perfect. Thanks for joining me here at Foothill Paint and Fabrication. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Mash that bell and drop me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next one.